Hi guys, welcome to day 6 of Shop Management. So I want to wrap up a little bit of our day 5 discussion with a little bit more of our benefits info, and then I want to get into a little bit more of the selling tactics as well as the vehicle delivery. If we don't get the vehicle delivery in this lesson, we'll do it in the next. And then vehicle delivery will be pretty much most of the information that's needed to be covered up to midterms, okay? So, what are some of the benefits and employee relation things that I want to finish up covering? We talked a little bit about health benefits and fringe benefits and all of those in the last lesson. That was in day 5. If you're not familiar, go back and watch it. But I want you to be 100% aware of things like the fact that your benefits can have a huge impact on your taxes. Okay. Obviously, the state and the federal government are both going to take an income tax, a certain percentage of your money that you earn in a year that they take to pay for essential services. Now, depending on where you live, you may also have a municipality tax, like Philadelphia. The city of Philadelphia does collect an income tax. So for residents who live in Philadelphia, we spend about 24% of our income in a year goes to taxes, split between the federal government, the state government, and the city government. It's a little closer to 20% if you don't live in the city. And other counties and municipalities can cause that to vary a little bit. So, there are things you can do to increase your benefits as an employee that are also going to lower your taxes. What do I mean? Well, a 401k. Okay, for those of you that don't understand what a 401k is, it's a savings account that's not just put in the bank, but it's put in investments. So you could choose to invest aggressively. You could choose to invest conservatively or moderately, kind of in the middle between those two. So when we talk about aggressive investing versus conservative investing, it's about how risky it is. So you're going to tell your company's bank that you want your money invested aggressively. That means it's going to go into risky companies, newer companies, usually smaller companies. When it earns money, it can earn a lot of money, man, and it can earn it fast. It can also lose a lot of money really fast, especially when you have a time like right now with Corona. A conservative investment is going to be in a company like General Electric or General Motors or Ford. These companies have been around for a very long time, that are very stable. Their stock prices usually don't move very much. They also have so much stock out there that no one stock really earns a lot of money. So, when you take out a 401k or your company takes one out on your behalf, you're going to say you're going to put a certain amount of money from every paycheck into this. And your company is going to work with an investment house like Merrill Lynch. And they're going to take that money and they're going to put in an account that has some mix of stocks. Aggressive, conservative, moderate. And you do have the right to call up the company and say, hey, can we make a change? Can we do this? Most people will kind of just pick, small, medium, large, conservative, moderate, aggressive, and let the company do all the work of figuring out where to divvy it up. Some employers will also add to this. Now, what's great about a retirement fund or a 401k? Well, in an ideal world, you're putting money aside so you actually have money to live off of when you retire. But the other kind of more immediate benefit is that money comes out pre-tax. So before the government takes money out of your paycheck, this money comes out. What does that mean? Well, what that means is that the government, when it goes to take its 20% or 23% share of your money, the amount you made is lower. So think about it. If I take 20% of $80, I'm going to get 16 bucks. But if I take 20% of $100, I'm going to get 20 bucks. Now, it doesn't sound like much if we're only talking about 80 or 100, but multiply that by 10, $800 or $1,000. So here's what I need you to think about. By you investing and putting money aside for your retirement, not only are you putting that money aside, but at least for right now, the government is going to see that you made less money. That money less that you made is going to be what the government takes from, not the total number you made. So those things are going to get subtracted off. There are a lot of plans like this. Like there's a plan called a 529 plan. That's a plan so that you or your spouse or your kids could use it for college expenses, books, room and board, tuition. So you could put money aside again that there's no tax coming off of to help pay for higher education. Sometimes when you take out your health care benefit from a company, they have what's called a flexible spending account. It's money you could take out pre-tax that you could put aside so that when you need to go and pick up medicine from the pharmacy, usually there'll be a copay. The medicine costs $200, but you got to pay $5. Well, that $5 can come out of your flexible spending account. Okay. Here's where everybody makes this mistake. Usually the first day somebody's employed, not even their manager, the service manager or whatever is the one who sits down with them. Usually if it's a bigger operation, they have a human resources department. And somebody from human resource will sit down with them and say, I need you to do all this paperwork. And in that paperwork, there's what they're entitled to as far as rights. There's all these other benefits that are in there that the company participates in. And a lot of people, quite frankly, don't read that first day paperwork too closely. And they get the last page and sign saying, yep, they've been given the paperwork, because that's all the page says. It doesn't say you understand all of it. It doesn't say you agree with it. It simply says you were given the information. They sign it and they hand it back to HR and they go home with that big pile of paperwork. And it goes in a file folder or in a drawer or maybe their dining room table, and it never gets looked at again. So I encourage you both ways now. If you're the employee and you're getting hired, you need to go through that paperwork and see what benefits you're entitled to. Because not only can they affect your benefits, but they can affect your taxes too. And being smart with what benefits you need and where your money is best spent. If you know you have a small child, you're going to need more money in your health benefits than somebody who's single with no kids. So the person who's single with no kids, it really doesn't benefit them, because usually some of those healthcare benefits, like flexible spending, any money you put aside in there, if you don't use it, it's gone. It goes bye-bye. So you have to be smart about how you use that. Other benefits or things that you have as a benefit that people don't think of: vacation time. No job must give you vacation time. Most will, if you're a full-time employee, but they don't have to. Usually, if you get vacation time, there's a period of time that you're on probation that you're not earning vacation. And then once you pass your probation, you will start earning vacation time. And a lot of companies have it tiered. Once you're with the company for 5 years, you go from a week to 2 weeks. Once you're 10 years, you go to 3 weeks, and so on. Some companies will let you, if you don't use your vacation time, they'll let you roll it over. Some companies, if you don't use it, it just goes away. Some companies, to encourage you to not use your vacation or your sick time, will say, whatever you don't use, we'll pay you for it at the end of the year. Now, what role does this play for you as a manager or a boss? Well, the role it plays is you have to plan. Mr. Bloom said this in the chat box in his class on Friday, and it's a very good quote. Failure to plan is planning to fail. And when it comes to managing vacation, managing time off, that is a huge, huge job for any manager or owner. If you have 5 techs and you do vacation time, you have to make sure that 3 of them aren't all taking vacation the same week in the summer. And maybe they all want to because they all want to take vacation and go on a boating trip together. You have to have the strength to tell them, guys, I can't do that. Or maybe you find that out at the beginning of the year, and that's the 1 week in the summer you have to close the shop down because you really can't afford to have work coming in because you won't get it back out. There's a lot of creative ways to handle that, but that is a benefit too. They also call it personal days. Some companies still give personal days, where the difference between a vacation day and a personal day is, in vacation, you ought to be telling me you need that day off at least 2 weeks in advance. I should have plenty of time to plan for that. A personal day is, let's say you got traffic tickets and you got to go down the traffic court and fight them. You might not have a lot of notice for that when that ticket came in saying you got to go fight it. So you might call me and let me know you got to go down tomorrow. Or let's say your car broke down. You're not going to make it in today. You don't necessarily have to use a sick day because it's not a sick problem, but you can use a personal day. Sick days are exactly that. If you or somebody you care for has gotten ill to the point where they're unable to be independent or unable to be taken care of, or they got to go to a doctor, or you got to go to a doctor, that's what a sick day is used for. Okay? Most companies out there are going to have a limit on how many days in a row you can take as a sick day. You also got to pay attention to all of your manuals because they're also going to tell you, hey, you can't take a vacation day before or after a holiday. Or maybe a vacation day is okay to take so that you have a longer weekend, but you can't take a sick day. You got to pay attention, okay? So that kind of wraps up the discussion about benefits and some of those things. If you have questions, email me or any of your instructors. But as we're thinking about that, I want to, all of this was to set up a good customer experience. And we talked a little bit about write-ups last time. So what I want you to think about is, if you're a customer, what are you looking for? What, when the service writer calls you to sell the job, what do you want? Okay. So that's what I want you to think about for the next class. Now, I want to wrap up the employee relation thing with one other little discussion. Hiring and firing. When you're hiring somebody, we already talked about it, you're looking for somebody who's a good fit with your values. They're going to work well with your other employees. You have to safeguard the team and the business you've already built. So that's why we have probation periods, because we want to make sure that who we hire adds to all of this. But you want to also be very careful during an interview. There are things that are allowed to be asked and things that aren't allowed to be asked. When you're in an interview, here's the good rule of thumb. Whatever you ask, needs to be directly related to the job you're interviewing somebody for. What do I mean? Well, you can't go down the road of asking somebody, let's say they're hiring to be a trainer for your company. You want them to go around to 2 or 3 different stores you have and train the employees on new software, new tire machines, and things like that. That's a lot of traveling. Somebody who has a family at home might not do okay with that. But you can't come out and ask them, well, how many kids do you have? Are you married? That's not going to go over. It's not legal. You can ask them, hey, by the way, I want to let you know this job entails a lot of traveling. Do you think that there's going to be any problem there? Are you going to be okay with that? So you just have to be careful that any question you ask is worded in such a way that it goes directly to the job at hand. Now, as an employee or as somebody interviewing for a job, I need you to know you have the right. If somebody asks a question like that, anything about age, sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, religion, medical issues, any of those kind of very delicate personal areas, you have the right to tell an interviewer, I'm not comfortable asking that, but let me assure you that anything in that area is not going to get in the way of me doing the job. You have a right to say that. Now, when it comes to firing, and there's a difference between firing, laid off, furloughed. Firing is a for-cause separation. There's some reason why an employee was cut from the company they were in. So, when somebody is fired, and you're doing the firing, by law, no, you don't have to give them warning. You don't have to give them notice. You don't have to tell them. And you don't have to be told if you're the employee. Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, all the states right here in the immediate area, I know for a fact, are what we call at-will states. Meaning unless you're part of a union where there's some type of contract in place, then quite frankly, your boss could walk in and fire you. If you're the boss, you can walk in and determine you don't like the way somebody's looking around the shop, and you can fire them on the spot. Legally, it can happen. Is it good business? No. When you hire somebody, we've talked about this in the first or second day, there's an investment of $10,000 or more possibly into that employee, into that position. So I wouldn't go to a car lot, throw $10,000 down on a car, and bring it back in a couple weeks and say, you know what, it didn't work out. Because I would know there's no way I'm getting my $10,000 or my full $10,000 back. I will have lost money on the deal. So I'm going to do everything I can to make that car that I picked work. It's going to be my last resort when I go back to the car lot and say, it's not working. Same thing with the employee. Firing really ought to be your very last resort. So what should come ahead of that? Well, there's verbal warnings. There are written warnings. You could possibly, and then there's disciplinary action, meaning you can demote somebody. You can put them back on probation. You can possibly say that fringe benefits, like using your pay on your day off, go away until they get up to a certain level of productivity or they fix whatever the problem is. The goal is to train them. Get them up to the level you need. That's the goal. The goal is not to punish. Trying to punish somebody is going to frustrate you as a boss, it's also going to frustrate them. Now, there are going to be times where, you know what, you don't want to fire them, or maybe the company you're working for doesn't want to fire them because they're afraid that's going to cause more problems. So what they do is they take fringe benefits away. They kind of have you hammer on them a little more. They make life for a particular employee so unhappy in hopes that the employee will leave on their own. I understand why businesses do it. Generally, it's not a great path, because in the meantime, that employee might do a ton of damage to the morale. And we've already talked about in previous classes how if that morale in the shop gets damaged, it can damage the customer relation and damage everything else from there. So, you know, if you're at the point of firing somebody, it's best to kind of like do it like a Band-Aid, rip it off. But you got to really make sure that you've exhausted every option and that you've tried to get this employee retrained. Remember, they were an investment. You're going to throw an investment away. So you have to think about that before firing. Also pay attention, depending on if you're your own boss and your own facility, or you're working for somebody, there might be legal processes that company wants you to follow. Also, if you have unionized employees, it's a whole nother matter altogether. In a later video, I'm going to describe a little bit the difference between a unionized employee and a non-union. Expectations and different things, because that's the kind of an area that makes everything we've talked about a little different. Okay. But we've talked about hiring, we've talked about firing. I told you what I want you to think about as we're going to start shifting back to the customer experience a little bit. I want you to think about, as a customer, what are they looking for their service from their service writer? What do you think the tactic that helps make the sale